I think that
Fusion of many forces. That's what a successful political convention should accomplish. Fusion, without the explosions that rocked the Democratic Party in 1968 and again in 1972. Mayor Daley, John Connally, and the unit rule were the villains of that year, but the real loser was Hubert Humphrey, who might have won the White House if his party and his president hadn't done him in. Now the Humphreys are in New York to pass the torch to yet another Democratic nominee who benefited mightily from winner-take-all primaries, just like George McGovern did 4 years ago. The slender majority on the Rules Committee wants to close the loophole in party procedure that permits a plurality of voters to carry all the delegates in a district.
Under the present party rules, fair share representation of views of all Democrats is required in 37 states. But because of a tricky loophole that was written into the delegate selection rules for 76, 13 states, including Texas, have a basically winner-take-all system. That means that a majority, or more often just a plurality, of the popular votes elect all the delegates. For example, in our home state of Texas, Governor Carter got 47% of the popular votes, but he got 94% of the delegates elected in the primary. And although I'm very satisfied and enthusiastic about Governor Carter, I just think the principle is a dangerous way to choose our presidential nominee and basically unfair because it disenfranchises all those voters who went to the polls and participated but did not get any delegates at all of their own choice to be here to represent them at this 1976 convention.
yeah, wow, that is me.
Governor Dolph Briscoe does not agree. He helped pass the Benson bill in the last session of the legislature, and he wasn't at all unhappy when he turned out to be the Jimmy Carter winner-take-all bill. Dilettantes of politics make light of struggles like these. They dismiss them as picayune and worry instead about grand strategies of global design. The mistake is theirs. Rulemaking is the most subtle of the political arts. The effects of these negotiations are far-reaching and definitive. That's why the Democratic Party is dancing such a careful minuet this season with women and blacks.
That the women's division of the Democratic Party will become a feminist division which has a strengthening of our participation, which will no longer merely be subservient to the chairman or chairwoman of the party, but will truly represent feminist interests in the Democratic Party.
New York Congresswoman Bella Abzug is carrying the water back from Jimmy Carter to the Women's Political Caucus. A compromise has been all but finalized. Carter will campaign for the ERA, and he'll appoint women to the highest levels of his administration. In return, the caucus will accept the best efforts of the party to achieve 50% representation for women at future conventions, but will not press for a binding rule to this effect on the convention floor. Some women fear that Jimmy Carter is loving them to death. Sissy Farenthold is one of the skeptics.
I don't really know the politics of it, very frankly, and I would think that that would be the only thing that would determine it, actually. I can understand people being weary of our never getting to equal representation, and you know, this isn't the first year, but I have not been in on the strategy of it from the beginning, and therefore I just don't feel that I would even say what would be the wiser route at this point.
Sissy Farenthold, star of 72, has been president of Wells College in upstate New York for 6 months now. She says it's lonely there, and she hasn't ruled out returning to Texas at some point. The ties that bind women and blacks are not as strong this year as they have been. The caucus of black Democrats has not supported the 50-50 rule for women. Instead, they've made a separate peace, winning for themselves goals and timetables for affirmative action. They too met with Jimmy Carter this week and came away satisfied.
He made it clear that he was not going to substitute himself for the Rules Committee, and that he supported the majority report. And of course, we as a caucus of black Democrats support that. So our problem with the governor is that we had no problems.
Jesse, what do you think is the big problem?
Well, actually, I think that some anxieties are relieved. You know, Jimmy Carter is still very much an untried entity, but I think the man has integrity. Frankly, I think he is trustworthy. I think he is a pleasant alternative to Ford. I am at least as impressed by the people surrounding Jimmy Carter as I am Jimmy Carter himself.
I think that those are the feelings that are intuitive. They're almost unconscious feelings that you have sometimes about a man's demeanor, sometimes about seeing the way he's behaved in a particular territory in which possibly it's not so difficult to be liberal, not so easy to be liberal. And after a while, you just come to certain assessments about a person's character. So, you know, this is all a matter of choices. We're choosing between Republicans and Democrats, so I think it's important to elect a Democrat.
Jimmy Carter is succeeding where Hubert Humphrey and George McGovern failed. He is heading off unpleasant forefights that might look unseemly on primetime television. Reverend Jesse Jackson was honest enough today to admit that when a candidate comes to the convention already the clear winner, there's not much else to do but compromise. Some say it's a sellout, others call it good politics. Either way, Jimmy Carter is emerging as a peacemaker, and the Bible says that they shall be called blessed. We'll know more about that in November.